The role of art has always been to act as a mirror. I'm contemplating my own experience as a Black woman in America and my family history and lineage. And how I do that is through the sculptural works that I create. I don't necessarily set out to think of my art as like political art, but as a civilian, I'm a political being. If you are engaging in critical thinking, it's sort of a rebellion to our kind of passive culture of entertainment. My name is Tammie Rubin. I was born on the south side of Chicago, the Auburn-Grisham neighborhood, and I live in Austin, Texas. Austin is a pretty creative area. There are a lot of artist studios and galleries that are here. It's interesting to think about how I became a sculptor. I was always a very curious person, creative person, but I didn't have a place to put it. In high school, grade school, I didn't have many art classes. I went to parochial school. And when we did have art, it was all 2D. And so it wasn't until college that I started to take ceramic classes. I felt like this is it. This is the thing that I've been looking for, and I've kind of never looked back. When I started being a sculptor in ceramics, I was working with the figure a lot, and it really started to feel like a crutch. So I completely changed my practice after grad school, and that's when I began working in a more abstract way, cloning everyday materials. I learned how to cast and mold make, and so over time, it's just having these space to put different kinds of materiality, practices, conceptual ideas into the work, and not being so outcome driven specifically, but thinking about like that journey along the way through the research and the experimenting becoming much more important, and then seeing what the outcome is. I'm here at my studio. It's called And Studio. It's owned and operated by artist Lisa Woods. It feels really kind of special to be like in a new space, and to have that space run by a Black woman feels particularly poignant for me. There are community groups that I engage with that are important to my practice as an artist. It really leads to an exchange of ideas and kind of gathering and convening. One of them is the collective I'm part of called ICOSA. And ICOSA is a 20-sided die, and there are 20 artists in this collective. This exhibition is an exhibition with myself and a collective member, Erin Cunningham. And we were both thinking about the role of like women's labor, both domestically within the home and then in industries. A lot of it has to do with working with the hand. So both my grandmothers were domestic workers. Her grandmother was also a maid. So thinking about how the lineage of labor has led me here as an artist who also works very much with like the idea of labor and then producing with my hands. For instance, there are 2 sets of hands. One is a set of my hand that Erin took of me in this gesture of like giving or receiving or demanding more. And hers is a gesture that her grandmother did, where her grandmother would be giving like bad news or having like a serious conversation where she would kind of sweep the table. This is my first video piece that I've shown. It's called Shifts. I think of the Mylar balloons that are in space as kind of like bodies that are in this kind of stasis. And so they are affected by any kind of movement that happens within the room, so any kind of air displacement. And so I thought that there was something really kind of intriguing about that, and the idea that they seem like they're just floating on their own, although they are tethered. And the thing that they're tethered to is this repeating conical form that it's in my work. And in this case, they're bells. So it's almost like a memorial of these groupings or these bodies moving through space. This project is called the Pylon Project. So it's a sign that is here at Canopy by an organization called Topo. So my piece is called Monkey Wrench, North Star, Shoe Fly. And for this one, I was taking quilt patterns that were used by the Underground Railroad. And these were thought of as ways to let people who were escaping slavery to know like when to prepare, when to get ready. Each of these symbols denotes a different thing, like the North Star means follow the path towards north, towards freedom. And not just literally, but like in a metaphorical way that we should all be kind of striving for continual freedom wherever we see constraints that are put upon us. The Always and Forever Ever series, the Citizen series, and Prayer Fans are part of my first solo exhibition in New York. The title of the show is Points of Origin at C24 Gallery in Chelsea. Citizen Series is a series of plotted drawings that I am using my mother and her sisters and my grandmother to start this conversation of a new project. It's I Am Woman, I Am Home, I Am Labor. And thinking about them in terms of like the sacrifices that they made and their labor and the way that they brought, they're kind of the core of the family. And so in the citizen drawings, there is a deconstructed image of each one of them. And in that deconstructed image, there's also me making them into saints. But instead of a halo, there's actually a collard green or a turnip green that kind of frames them and makes them into these sainted, heroic figures. In my work, I am thinking about myself in place of history as an American citizen. So if I'm contemplating myself that way, then of course it talks about origin, it talks about history, it talks about policy. These contemplations that I'm having, other people have had. Thinking about my family narrative of like the Great Migration has been a way for me to have a larger conversation of like Black history in the United States because my family's experience was not unique. So the fact of like starting familiar and thinking outwardly about how the historical context of my family's history is a shared history with all Black Americans who are part of this Great Migration. And I'm talking about Black bodies moving through the United States, moving through spaces, and this continuous seeking for the acknowledgement of our citizenship here as Americans. So I'm not thinking of these as separate. This is not Black history that's separate from American history. This is American history. And making these objects cements that in my mind.